All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our first What's Next conversation. My name is John Rooney, and I am the Education and Leadership Programs Coordinator here at Steppenwolf Theater. At Steppenwolf Theater, not here in this room, but we'll get to that. And I use he and they pronouns. I want to thank you all so much for joining today for this conversation. In this series, the What's Next series, I'll be interviewing established theater professionals about their careers, the state of the theater industry, and their thoughts on how early career professionals can navigate entering into the industry in the wake of COVID-19. Today, I'll be interviewing Artistic Director Anna D. Shapiro, who's down here for me. I don't know where she is for all of you, and one of our ensemble members, Ian Barford. Before we begin, I want to do a land acknowledgement. Abi, can we get that? Thank you so much. And I will acknowledge that Abi Shrestha is with us today, one of our other Steppenwolf education staff members. So I just want to acknowledge that Steppenwolf Theater, we recognize that we sit on native land. The area our building resides on is the traditional homelands of the people of the Council of Three Fires, including the Ojibwe, Potawatomi, and Odawa. Although for over 200 years, Native nations have been forcibly removed from this territory, we must acknowledge that this land continues to be the site of gathering and healing for more than a dozen other tribal nations and remains home to over 100,000 tribal members in the state of Illinois. In our chat feature, Abi has just put a link to a website that can help you learn more about the land that you currently reside on and the histories there. So we encourage you to do that. Also, just want to shout out that we have between 100 and 200 people on the call today, or joining us on the call today, from all over the United States, but also some other countries, including Canada, Ireland, Switzerland, and Greece that I know of. There could be some others as well. So we want to thank you all for joining us on Steppenwolf's virtual stage. Before we dive into the conversation, I will be doing a lot of the questions in conversation with Anna and Jan today, but we do have an opportunity for people at home using Zoom to use the Q&A feature that should be at the bottom of your screen. And in that, you can go ahead and ask questions throughout the whole conversation, but we will hold some time at the end of the conversation for any questions that come in through there. We'll do our best to get to as many questions as we can, or at least kind of the general topic that people are asking about. And then at the very end, once we're done with the conversation, I'll have some other resources to share out. So do stay with us for that. But to begin, hi, I'm gonna welcome Anna and Jan. Hi, welcome.
Hi, guys.
Hi. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for asking us.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, to begin, can you introduce yourselves? I've been saying your name, but who are you? What's your relationship to Steppenwolf, and your pronouns or any other identifiers you wish to share?
Okay, I'll go first. I'm Anna Shapiro. I use she, they, she, her, hers pronouns. I'm an ensemble member at Steppenwolf, and I'm currently the artistic director.
Hi, I'm Ian Barford. I use he, him, his, and I am also a Steppenwolf ensemble member.
Thank you both. So before we get into like the big questions on career, how are you both doing right now? And at the moment, we gotta go person first, right? So how are you doing?
Well, you know, for people who don't know, Jan and I are married to each other. He's upstairs in our bedroom. I'm downstairs in our dining room, and our kids, who can't believe how lucky they got because we have to do this together, are downstairs in the basement on screens playing video games that they're not usually allowed to play. So I guess how we are is grateful. First and foremost, I think we'd both say we're grateful for each other and our community, and mostly our health. but I would be lying. I mean, I don't want to answer for Jan. I think that as a person whose kind of spirit is in communion, I'm struggling. I'm definitely struggling.
Yeah, it was an astonishing timing for us. We were in the midst of opening our play by our fellow ensemble member Tracy Letts called The Minutes. I was acting in the play and Anna was directing the play. And we were in the midst of previews, and we literally had gotten to the first press performance was going to be the following night when the plug got pulled because of COVID-19. And we were aware of what was happening, with COVID, and there had been a few cases in New York in the early part of March, but it wasn't preventing people from coming to the theater, and the numbers in the house were as they typically are. And Tracy and I jumped in the car and we drove back, and to just observe what's been happening in New York City since then in just such a short time is it's just staggering, really, to witness and of course to see what it's done to the performing arts communities around the country, and I guess around the world, really. And so all of us are just trying to absorb the implications of this, how to move forward, how to maintain a creative spirit through it, and to continue to contribute, as Anna says, in the way that we do, which is through communion. And so it's we're relegated to Zoom and these kinds of interactions, but for now it's all we have.
Absolutely. Yeah, we are definitely taking it one day at a time, figuring out what we need individually and as a community, for sure.
Yeah.
Before we go back into talking about COVID-19 and how that's impacted the industry, since this conversation is open to everybody, we're really hoping it can be a resource for everyone, but especially wanting to pay attention to folks early in their careers and how they enter into the industry and what are the things to think about. I'd love to hear from both of you a little bit about your career path. So what, what are the highlights of what's kind of gotten you to here?
Well, I'm a real product of the Chicago theater community. I grew up in Evanston, which is a suburb right outside of Chicago. My mom was and is a big theater person, and she made it a part of our lives. So theater was always a part of my life as an audience member. I never thought that I would participate in it because I never wanted to be an actor. And somehow, slowly but surely, my love for it became a practice of it. I went to Columbia College and I was a film major. And then I decided making movies seemed so, it took too long and I have a short attention span. So I took a theater class, a directing class, and it just, it really was a life-changing experience for me. I always had felt like learning was challenging. I never thought of learning as something that kind of joined you and made you whole. I always thought of learning as something that went against the nap, and when I started learning about how to direct plays, suddenly it felt really kind of holistically right for me. And it didn't feel like a struggle. It felt like an awakening. Everything I learned felt like it just woke me up more and more. And Chicago is such a great community. If you decide you want to have a theater company, you make a theater company, and that's due in no small part to Steppenwolf, and just the great legacy of those folks who started our company. And so started a small theater company that helped me go to grad school, which was a decision that I made pretty fast, and went to grad school and then came back. And my first job out of grad school was on staff at Steppenwolf. And Steppenwolf has been the foundation of everything that I've done, given me the stability that I needed when I was a younger artist, gave me the platform I needed when I was a more established one. And it's just, I got here because I belong here. I don't know any other way to put it. It's just, I think it was kind of inevitable. And then, Jan and I have known each other forever, and we did a play together in 2008. Jan, was August?
7.
Okay, so when we did, and when we did August Osage County, that kind of changed our lives, both of us, and a lot of things changed, and our careers opened up in a different way, but we still call Steppenwolf home happily.
Yeah. I grew up in a small town in the middle of Illinois. Like a lot of the original Steppenwolf members, who are about 10 years older than Anna and I ended up going to Illinois State University. I had never participated in theater at all before I got to the university there, and through kind of strange series of circumstances, I ended up studying acting, and had some very encouraging and enthusiastic teachers there. And very fortuitously for me, right around the time that I finished school there, I think it started a year before I finished, I think it was Tom Irwin, one of our company members, had the idea to create an acting internship with Illinois State University, where a lot of them had gone to school, and to kind of cultivate, young actors. And that was just incredibly lucky that I came along at that time. The internship doesn't exist anymore. But it was great. A handful of them came down for 2 days of auditions. And for us, it was a really big deal that these Steppenwolf people were there at school, and they put us through all these different paces and different scenes and monologues to audition for them. And I was very lucky. I got chosen to be one of the acting interns for a year. I got a small stipend from the university, and a small stipend from Steppenwolf. And we did everything. We worked in the box office. We built the sets. We cleaned bathrooms. We literally anything and everything. But they tried to orient us toward acting as much as they could. But it was a wonderful experience on so many levels, but not the least of which it created relationships that I still benefit from to this day, and started doing main stage shows there in the early 90s, and that's just kind of evolved over these years. So that was an incredibly lucky connection for me between ISU and Steppenwolf.
Thank you both. So we know you're an ensemble member. You're both ensemble members, and Anna, you're an artistic director. Can you talk a little bit about what those positions mean? What is it to be an artistic director? What does it mean to be Anna D. Shapiro as artistic director, right? Because it's different every position. And then also, like, what does it mean to be an ensemble member? What is that community? How does that work?
Steppenwolf has never had an artistic director that wasn't an ensemble member. Because we program our theater and what our theater participates in. I mean, education is a huge part. It is twinned with our creative practice, and always has been. I mean, when Steppenwolf that's always been the instinct of the original people who founded the theater. And I mean, Jan just gave a perfect example. They made sure they got to ISU and grabbed students the minute they could. They did it, you know, John. I mean, it wasn't like they had a ton of money or a ton of resources, but they knew they wanted to do, you know, wanted to start that then. Rondi Reed and Tom Irwin taught me an acting class when I was a freshman in high school. It's always been a part of what we've done. We program everything we do based on the interests and the kind of beliefs of the ensemble. So you always have an artistic director who is an ensemble member. I think every artistic director at Steppenwolf has had different mandates because of the time and place, and you know, the original guys had their mandates, and then Randy Arney, who forever and ever artistic director, he had his mandate, got us into the building at 1650. Then Martha Levy had her mandate, which I think had hugely to do with playwrights and becoming less a kind of regional theater and more a generative company that had to focus on creating room and systems for playwrights. And then also because her tenure was so long, right? She did that as well as establish us as a national organization. So, you know, I come in at a different moment with different challenges. And it's so funny. I think I've said this to you, John, when we've been talking to Young Adult Council. You come into an organization you think you know, and you think you know what the problem is, and then you learn what the actual problem is. So I think for David Schmitz and I, the ED, we thought we had a certain set of challenges that was our mandate, and have come to learn that there's a different set of challenges, which is a totally different webinar.
Yeah.
You know, hopefully we'll do that. But what's also interesting, right, is that now the world has just dealt us another challenge. So I think what I was as the artistic director 3 weeks ago is a completely different job than what I have now, like completely. And I hope that I'm up for it. I think we're all up for it. We have a great leadership team and all of that, but the question is the answer is completely different. So that's what it's like right now. What it's like right now is you got to be supple in the saddle, agile, responsive, and you have to continue to bring the organization back to the essential question of why do we do what we do and who do we do it for?
Thank you. Thank you. Jan, anything with that as an ensemble member as well? How do you kind of feel your relationship to the ensemble, and is that changing in this moment as well?
I think it is changing in this moment. I think that we're talking to each other. We're trying to understand, you know, first of all, how our work can be done. I mean, theater is quintessentially the gathering of people in a room, which is something that we just fundamentally can't do right now, and probably won't be able to do for a while. Maybe until this vaccine comes along. I think that as ensemble members, I think the nature of being an ensemble member has evolved a lot too over the years, and the different kind of eras and iterations of Steppenwolf and how it functions. Now, of course, we are as big as we have ever been. So that changes somewhat the dynamics of how we relate to one another. But I think that generally speaking, you know, we benefit from repeated relationships and from being able to build on relationships that have a history. And that can be, there's a challenging side to that too sometimes, but by and large, that's a tremendous asset and benefit for making work. Our ability to communicate with one another, our ability to understand each other and to push each other, you know, and to keep our standard as high as we possibly can. And God knows the level of talent in our ensemble is serious. Yeah, and then I think it's being receptive and being a willing participant. Anna is the current artistic director, and whoever follows her and the people who preceded her, they're trying to create dynamics with creative entities that really create some real power, whether that's director, actor, playwright, actor. There's a lot of different ways to work that chemistry, but we're very lucky to be part of an organization like this, to tell stories together and to work together and to have this history. It's remarkable. I remember sitting around that table in August Osage County with those wonderful friends and actors, and realizing how many plays that I had the good fortune to be in with practically everybody at the table. So those are very special and very rare things to experience as an actor.
Thank you so much. Kind of widening our scope a little bit, not just at Steppenwolf at large. I'm curious about what are some of the things that you're seeing in the industry right now, and both the challenges, but also like the change, right? And is there anything, there's a lot of questions. What are some of those questions that we're asking one another and of each other in this community right now?
Well, I think there are a set of really important questions that have come to the fore pre-COVID that I hope don't go away because of COVID, right? I mean, I think the biggest question, it's hard, John, to answer separate from what Jan and our central task. And our central task is our theater. So maybe through the specific, some of the universal will come, right? And you can push at it more if I don't quite get it.
Yeah.
Get at it. But, part of what has been happening at Steppenwolf, and I think throughout the country, is a real redefinition of what the American story is, who gets to tell it, who authors it, and how responsible the producing organizations are for widening that conversation, and how actively engaged we have to be. You can't just say that everything's going to get better because you're a good person and because you have good intentions. I think that, Steppenwolf was started by a group of young people at a certain time in life with a certain geography, right? That was their destiny. Their geography was their destiny, right? And they weren't thinking about the effect of their work and their ability to give people opportunities when they were making plays. They were making plays for each other. They were young artists dying to express themselves. And if you kind of get in a time machine and fast forward 40 years, all of a sudden those impulses start to look like intentions. And you have to re-examine what your intention is as an organization. You have to say, who are we, and how do we best serve the community we're in? So one of the big things that we have done as an organization is really ask ourselves, what kind of theater are we? A lot of people talk about Steppenwolf as the national theater of this country. Well, all you have to do is to walk into the National Theater in London and then walk into the lobby of the Steppenwolf Theater Company to realize Steppenwolf's not the national theater of anything. We are actually a medium-sized theater. We have a national impact and an international impact because of the quality of our work. Straight up, that it's like Jan said, the caliber of talent that we have is I think, unmatched. So that's a wonderful accident that we are fortunate to be, the beneficiaries of. Are we a regional theater? Well, really, frankly, we're not a regional theater, because when you think about the regional theater movement, which is an incredibly important movement and has done incredible work, it's to bring extant work out to the country, right? We do too much original work to be considered a regional theater. Are we a neighborhood theater? John, Chicago has a lot of neighborhood theaters. It's amazing. Well, we're too big to be a neighborhood theater. We are a Chicago theater company. That's what we are. We make work for our community. And in order for us to do that, we have to make sure the work we're making looks like our whole community. So that's something we're all committed to. And we're committed to the different ways that we have to make that happen, while we also stay true to the ethos of excellence and ensemble work, all of these things. This is a lush, beautiful conversation. It's, when you compare it to what we're dealing with now, it's actually such a happy, wonderful conversation. We're trying to keep our eye on now is how in a crisis, which we are in a crisis, do we hold on to that ethos? Do we hold on to continuing to move forward in that question and continuing to reach as many people as we possibly can? So I think that will be the big question, John. Like, how does the theater community at large continue its qualitative forward motion in inclusion at a time when we are being shut down? And that's, I think, going to be, I think we're all, and I was listening to Cuomo today, and he was talking about how he's made the hospitals in New York stop talking about themselves as, this is Manhattan hospitals, these are, upstate hospital. We are one hospital. That's how we have to think as a community. We're no longer Chicago theaters, regional theaters, commercial theater. We are one hospital, and we have to figure out how to keep going as one hospital. And I think the leaders are pretty committed to that right now, that I've dealt with. Sorry for the long answer.
No, that was wonderful. Thank you so much.
I don't have anything to add. That was beautiful.
Yes.
Thanks, honey.
Thank you for that kind of snapshot, both for Steppenwolf, but for the industry as well. Obviously recognizing a lot of differences in there too. But that's really great. So moving to this conversation of folks that are entering into this industry, right? We've got people on this call that might be graduating college right now. We might have even like some of our teens that are here, like thinking what are next steps. Some, folks that have been in the industry for a while, some that are just like looking to get any sort of like thought, right, in this moment of how to move forward. And obviously it is changing daily. So we don't know what, and we don't know where it's going. We don't know how to necessarily, fix it and say, this is the golden ticket. None of us have that. But if you were entering the industry right now, I guess, what are some questions that maybe you might be asking or approaches you might have in this moment to kind of navigate, to learn what's happening, to maybe see about, what's next in a potential career step, as well as take care of yourself in this moment?
Well, one thing I would say, and maybe this is specific to a Chicago cultural perspective in terms of what this city is known for and how it has evolved as a theater city. And this relates to something Anna mentioned earlier, and that has to do with the storefront theater world. Tracy Letts, a friend of ours, talks very much about being a product of that. I know Anna thinks of herself as a product of that. I certainly think of myself as a product of that. And what that really comes down to, just as it did with the original Steppenwolf company and those people, is banding together. You work together with like-minded people to make your own way. I think that, sometimes after I did my internship, I too was part of a small company that I helped found, and we were just a ragtag bunch of kids with no money, but we had a lot of desire and will. And when you collectivize that, and you come together with other people who have the same passions, you can do a lot of amazing things. And you are the author of that book. You're not waiting. I think one of the things about being part of this industry is you can very easily get into this kind of victim mentality that, oh, well, it didn't work out for me. They didn't pick me. I tried and it didn't work, and God knows that I have sympathy for that. I'm not criticizing that feeling. It's certainly a big part of what it is to be an actor, is that sort of, coming against the gatekeepers. But the fact is that, you can make your own work. You can make your own world and create your own stories. And things come out of that, both internally and externally, that are very meaningful and that you can build on and learn from and grow from. And that's, like I say, maybe an overly kind of Chicago perspective, but it's certainly the one that I know about and that I come from, and that I would encourage people who are interested in theater to pursue, because after all, that's what we do. We collaborate. It's a collaborative medium. Fundamentally, that's what it is. You come together to work on something.
Yeah, and I could not agree more. And I feel like, here's the reality too, just taking it to the moment we're in, John. If you look at COVID and what's happening, right? The realities of who's going to get to make their stuff, sorry, cursing. Oh my word, my mom is on here. Sorry.
I think she's okay.
Okay. Of who's going to get to start to tell their stories first? It ain't going to be us. Our houses are too big, right? Like, I think that the first places that are going to start to get their stories told are the smaller venues where you can put a group of people together. And even where you can start to rehearse together. You can't ever give up because you feel like there's some, as Jan said, like there's some gate you can't push through up at the top. I know this sounds kind of trite to say, but I never, ever, ever thought about a career. I never had a plan. I never thought past the show I was getting to do and the people I was getting to do it with.
Same for me.
Ever.
Yeah.
And Jan and I don't come from any money, okay? So I have had a job since I was 13. Worked my way through college, worked my way through grad school. Okay, so there's no kind of like secret pocket of funding. But what that did for me to always be kind of following my own barometer was that when it was received by everybody, it was amazing, but it was also that I didn't get confused when it happened. I wasn't doing something for any other reason than I loved doing it. I also know I can't direct well if I don't love the thing I'm doing. So it's actually pretty pragmatic. I mean, the things that I've really screwed up are the jobs I said, and by the way, they came after I had success, the jobs I screwed up. because I made decisions for reasons that were different than the decisions I made at the time Jan's talking about, right? We find the people that we want to do the work with. We find a story that we want to tell, and we do it over and over again. And Virginia Woolf had this great quote that I have lived by since someone told it to me in grad school, which was that artists don't have careers. They have a series of problems that they either solve or they don't solve, and then they move on to the next. Mm. And I think that it's why we're going to figure out a way through this and past this crisis to get our stories told. All we have is obstacle. All we have, that's all we've ever had is obstacle. It just changes, you guys. Like, first it was the obstacle of how to get my rehearsal in on top of my IHOP shifts. And now it's how to get the art made if you've got commercial producers who don't care about art. Like, you're always negotiating some obstacle to making what you want to make. And the fun thing is pushing through those with people that you love to make work with. That's all that matters. That's all that matters.
It's so true, Anna. That's really true. I remember working my day job when we had our little company way back in the day, 9 to 5, get up at 7 in the morning, whatever it was, go downtown on the train, sit at my desk from 9 to 5, eat a little something, rehearse from, 7 to 11, drink a couple of beers, talk about it all till 1 in the morning, go to bed and get up and do it all the next day. And, those were wonderful days. Those were fantastic. We were doing exactly what we wanted to be doing. Not without challenges.
No, and frankly, it led us to this moment where whoever's on here wants to hear what we have to say. So it's not like, I don't want to be back at the IHOP. I'm not an asshole. Like, I like where we are now, but two curses. John. Oh my
You're doing
God.
great.
You guys are never going to let me do this again. Yeah. But if we're really being honest about how we got here because, it's like, I've known Tracy Letts since we were 22, this is real. And also when you have to weather it, like we had to shut down the minutes. I'm turning to my husband, friends I've worked with for 30 years, 20 years. We're taking that hit together. It matters. It matters. So I don't think either of us can say much more than find like-minded people. Make your way together and don't stop.
Thank you. So a question is a follow-up that also is sort of tied to one of the questions in the Q&A. You talked about, I think it was Jan that was talking about, well, now I'm forgetting, maybe it was Anna, I don't know, one of you spoke about believing that the folks that are going to come back first are going to be those small storefronts, and the importance of working in storefronts and working collectively, even if it's just you and your friends, right? Even if you don't have a formal company. Can you talk a little bit about your thoughts on like how to start connecting with those companies? Is it okay to reach out to folks right now if you don't have that relationship? If you've somebody asked a question about like, seniors in college that are applying to jobs right now in the middle of that, or maybe have applications out or in the interview process, like how to follow up in a way right now or make connections in a way right now that like respects the moment that we're in, but also like advocate for yourself,
That's right. That's a really, really good question. And I have a half-baked answer because it's such a new situation. I want everyone who is applying for jobs, depending on summer internships at theaters. You know, one of, our goddaughter, she was just about to graduate from Syracuse. She lost her, I have to move or I'm gonna lose power. She lost her graduation, she lost her internship, she lost her summer job. All of these things that are about her future, they just came tumbling down within the course of a couple of weeks. And it's interesting because you forget when you're our age how for me, I look at that and I'm sad for her, but it's just a few months, right? I understand that younger people don't see that. They can't see in these bigger chunks of time. So I guess I want to say first, I express my sympathy and empathy for all of the things that feel so precarious for people who are just graduating and have all of these questions about where they're gonna go and how it's gonna work. But I do want to say that the places you guys are thinking about going, the places that you had planned on going, the places you aspire to be working in for your lives, are all trying to figure out how to survive this and how to do it with integrity, ethically, and wisely. And so there isn't, John, going to be a lot of energy for that group of people, simply because we have to make sure we're here for you for the long term. We have to make sure that we're a place that someone on this call is going to take over Steppenwolf someday. Okay. So our team has to make sure there's a Steppenwolf for you to take over. And that's what the next period of time has to be. So I want to just give you, because I think it might help, and John, you can stop me if this is not helpful, a little bit of a view into what happens every day at Steppenwolf right now during COVID. Every day, the very few people who have to be on site are there. We have a big campus. We have a construction job going on that is still happening because in Illinois, construction has been called an essential activity. Okay, and we have a big building we're building, so we have to have some people on site there. We have that every day. The leadership of our organization meets on this platform to talk about long-term, short-term, long-term, short-term, every single day. This is a meeting that we used to have every couple of weeks that we now have every single day. And so and then combined with that, because of the size of Steppenwolf, and because quite frankly, I shouldn't say the size, because I think there are probably bigger organizations that don't give a crap about this. We also are putting an enormous amount of energy in how to help the young people who are isolated, who we are used to dealing with on the regular, that contact. How to deploy the Chicago theater community right now is launching a thing where our costume shops, everyone in our costume shops can sew. All of them have sewing machines at home. I have a sewing machine. We're going to start doing this citywide making masks, where we're trying to find the skill sets in our people that can help at a bigger level. So I want to put a fine point on that, because I think everyone, especially young people, have to take a breath and understand that the way we look at Steppenwolf, the way we look at our theater, is that we are a part of society. We have a function in society beyond entertainment. It has to do with helping people live more lush lives. And at this point, we have to redefine what that means and put all of our energy into being citizens. And I would ask that for the young people who are freaking out right now, and I'm so with you about your future, you actually are going to be okay.
And this is an opportunity too. This is a unique obstacle. As Anna was pointing out earlier, there are always obstacles, and the obstacles shape the direction that things go in. And this is a very unique, nobody alive has ever experienced anything like this. This is a global pandemic. The whole world is at a standstill. What does that mean? What are the implications of that in terms of our collective understanding of ourselves, who we are, what theater is? Nobody knows right now what it's going to feel like to walk into a theater again after this. Nobody knows. That is an opportunity for creative people to understand and relate to, and to me, I know it may take a while, and it may not be until the vaccine is there in terms of people's comfort level to go into spaces like that. But when they do, I think that there's going to be a tremendous appetite to gather and to share stories together in living moments like that. So this is a tough time. I understand that, but I also think it's a very unique transformation. And the other side of it, to me, is fascinating. And I think the young people who are on the verge of their professional lives have something really interesting to deal with, not without challenges, I understand, but also unique in its implications.
Great. Thank you both so much. To that notion of this opportunity for creation and imagining, the future, right? One person was talking about like the content creation already at Steppenwolf in the past couple of weeks, right? We were moving to this virtual stage. We're exploring, we've essentially in like 2.5 weeks created a completely new company, right?
Right, that's right.
And so can you talk a little bit to how that content creation is created? What are the things we're definitely talking about, and of like whose stories get to be told? How do we tell that? Who are we? And we talk about the importance of theater and what it can do for people. How are we making those decisions, and how is that coming together? Who's a part of that, and what does that look like on our end?
That's such a great question, and frankly, we're still asking ourselves that a bit right now. So we are doing this thing, right, called keeping the virtual lights on, and what that means is we're asking ourselves two questions. The first is, how are we good citizens at this time? And how do we also create content in replacement for the live content we're losing, in terms of, quite frankly, being an income stream, right? So we don't produce, we don't make any money. So we're trying to balance those two things, John. We're trying to figure out, where does citizenship join our responsibility to our organization? So our responsibility to the public, our responsibility to the organization. And we're trying to twin those things, as we always do. And then over here, and also linked, is our education. Again, to get back to StepEd is hand in hand with our main stage work that we do. So we feel like what we want to do is, first of all, create access and connection to StepEd and the work that we do at StepEd. I think, John, what's going to happen while we stream some of this StepEd stuff is that not just are we keeping our young people engaged, but I'm excited because I bet you Ensemble members will learn more about what we do at StepEd, the ones who don't live here, during this time than they would have ever learned about it before. So I'm super excited that the community, we're not only granting, we're not only trying to make sure that our young people get what you guys can, as much of what you guys can give virtually, we're also giving access to the community to see what we do, which I think is really special. And frankly, we couldn't have done on such a big platform before, right? So that feels like an opportunity to me, which is very exciting. As we look to how we're gonna program the art we're gonna make, the first thing we have to do, really quite frankly, is what can we call together really fast? Like what do we have available to us? And as we figure out what we have available to us, we are balancing, we are programming our online stuff in the same way we program the season, which is who's making it, who gets to participate, to whom does it speak? And we are asking ourselves those questions. And I will also say this, you guys, I mean, Steppenwolf has a tendency, which some of you may know, for some darkness, right? And there are a couple of projects on the table that I have had Leli Demoz, our associate artistic director, call me privately and be like, no way, man, nobody needs that right now. Please don't do that. So there are also things that you can handle when you share them live in a group with 1,000 other people or whatever, that when you're quarantined at home alone, perhaps it's not the best thing to offer up. So we're trying to figure out all of that. And we're trying to figure out who we need to do it, how we can hopefully activate our artists who we've essentially had to deactivate as a result of this. So I don't want to forget that part. There's a lot of artists who are out of jobs as a result of what we've had to do. So we're trying to prioritize to activating them and putting some money in their pockets where we can. I don't know if that answered the question.
I thought that was great. Yeah, great. One question that came in, and I'll kind of reframe it a little bit, but it's really speaking to that nature of when to say yes, when to say no, when to take an opportunity, when to figure out that it's not the right opportunity for you. You know, what kind of recommendations might you have for somebody in figuring out how to balance like taking those opportunities, especially if it's getting paid, especially right now, with like learning and growth. And that's like beyond this moment as well. This is a particular moment, but yeah, how do you balance that? How do you figure out when to say yes?
Well, I think for anybody, and maybe particularly so for theater people who don't have, generally speaking, don't have permanent occupations, you know, tend to be kind of freelance nomads. We are always interrogating our kind of practical and creative lives. And of course, those things need to work together to function as a human being in the world. And so my feeling is just that's, in terms of the growth of a person, kind of understanding where you are when you're there. I think that for a lot of us, I know certainly for me, my original experience with theater was helping me to grow as a person. I didn't get into it because I think, I want to be a rich person, so I'm going to make $1 million. I wasn't thinking about any of those things. It was simply about how it made me feel. And so that's what was important to me at that time, was getting that feeling, having that experience. And then, of course, there are times, you come along and certain other realities become present for you. So to me, that's a kind of ongoing interrogation, and it changes. There are times when taking a certain job for me would have been a no-brainer. And then at other points in my career, for various reasons, I would have said, no thanks, I don't want to do that right now. It doesn't fit into who I am at this moment. So those things are always shifting and evolving. And I think it takes a real kind of clear-mindedness to understand where you are in order to make good decisions in that area, because sometimes we don't.
Yeah, absolutely. Wonderful. Well, one last question before I close out the conversation with you all. And then again, to the folks at home, I'll share out a couple of resources that we have as well. I think you've talked to this a little bit, but what is something that's bringing you hope right now in all of this?
The pause is not because nothing is bringing me hope and I'm having to find it. I think for me right now, the world feels way smaller than it has ever felt in my life. And it makes me hopeful that people will understand that borders are a fantasy. They're a fantasy. We have one earth. We are all on it. And I feel like Mother Nature has had it. And she's like, you guys exist at my pleasure. And if you don't pay attention, you know, I have hope that this will one people us. I mean, I have a lot of little hopes but my big hope is there's a part of me that just wants to look around at everyone who doesn't understand that and say, are you kidding? Are you kidding? So I have that hope. I also think that I have a personal little hope that is a privileged person's experience. So I want to contextualize it. I can't do anything. I can't do anything. I'm a very active person in terms of like feeling my effect in the world. And I can't do that now. And that's turning me away from the external and forcibly turning me into the internal and trying to figure out what's important when there is no scorecard outside of me. And I think young people have to really know there's no scorecard that's real outside of you. It's not real. And so I have hope that they'll get that message and that I'll get that message.
Yeah. Very, very similar. Just my hope is that the perception of us and our existence on this planet, our fleeting existence on this planet is more in the collective than in the individual. That's my hope.
Thank you. Awesome. Thank you both so much for joining us today.
Oh, thanks for having us. Our kids are going to be so bummed that it's over because they have to stop looking at the screens.
Yeah, they're doing fractions now.
Ooh, fun. Well, thank you both so much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, John.
Thank you. And B, we'll go ahead and pull up those next slides. Before we officially close out with everyone today, I just want to highlight a couple of resources. I know the class is coming up right now. Great. So one thing I want to throw out, and we'll put these links in the chat as well. There is a group whose names are below that I want to shout out: Nicole Brewer, Hannah Femlin, Anne-Marie Lonsdale, and Abigail Vega, along with a bunch of other people who have been doing really wonderful work to collect a lot of resources for folks, especially within the theater community and beyond, in how to address and take care of yourself and get the support you need and all of that. Their website that they've created, that's curated a ton, like hundreds of links, is COVID-19 Freelance Artist Resources. They are also, through HowlRound Theater Commons, are producing weekly webinars that are actually to have different conversations with industry professionals about how to support one another in this time and get the support that we need financially, mentally, physically, what have you. That next one's actually today, right now. So that link is in the chat. You can go there next. It's also being recorded, so you can watch that later if need be and watch webinars from previous weeks. And then the next slide, I just want to shout out next Tuesday at the exact same time, 12 to 1 Central Time. Our next What's Next conversation is going to be with David D. Stewart, who's the production manager currently of Disney Parks Live Entertainment, who's also been production manager for the Guthrie, does a lot of work with USITT, so it'll be a great conversation. And we can also kind of talk about the production end of things right now too. We're also sending you in the chat right now, and will be emailed out, a quick survey so you can kind of let us know about your experience today. If you fill that out and choose to put your name and email at the bottom, you'll be entered to win a 30-minute informational interview, so a one-on-one chat with a Steppenwolf staff member. So feel free to fill that out. We definitely read those over and consider that as we move our programming forward. And finally, while all of our workshops are completely free for participants with Steppenwolf Education, if you have the ability, no pressure if you do not, but if you have the ability to donate, there's a right there. All of that money that comes in through those donations go directly to keeping our virtual lights on and continuing to keep programming like this coming. So, with that, I thank you all so much. I hope you can take care of yourself because taking care of yourself and each other is the most important thing we can do right now. And I hope to see you next week. Thank you all so much. Have a good day. Bye.